And we're back. Welcome to MSP Tech Day sponsored by Datto. I'm Jeff Farris, President and CEO at CloudRadial, and joining me is Ricky Cecchini, who is our Director of Business Development. And in this session, we're going to talk about training and our intranet capabilities of CloudRadial and do a deep dive on those features. So before we get started, I want to go through and just kind of show you where training fits and the intranet fits in the scheme of things. CloudRadial is a very powerful product that integrates a lot of functionality into a single pane of glass. It brings together service, account managers, clients together in a collaborative platform that brings together the needed features that helps all of these different groups work together effectively. And nothing showcases that more than our training and intranet capabilities. From the very, very beginning of this project, we have focused on the client, and we've focused on their usage of the portal, not only to receive information from the MSP, but also to create information for their own benefit and collaborate with MSPs to create something bigger than they could create themselves individually. So the key points in our intranet strategy really are the fact that so much of what's client facing is actually editable or creatable by the clients themselves. And whether that is the knowledge base, the calendar, directory, training, messages, even service catalog items are editable or creatable by the clients. And what this does is create, it's called an integrated services catalog or an integrated services portal. And what that is basically is where, from an end user's perspective, they are there to get an answer. And if the MSP has the answer, that's great. If the internal office manager has the answer, that's great. Or if they need to go create a ticket and it needs to go off to a third-party provider, like, for example, maybe the consultant on their CRM system or on their advanced analytics system, they can do that. And those tickets can be routed by email to the right source. So there's nothing in CloudRadial that is especially limiting from a client's perspective. Again, it's a very powerful MSP tool, but if you were just to give this functionality to the clients, they would find it themselves a very powerful tool as well, because it has all of these base intranet capabilities. If you've ever had a client talk to you about doing a SharePoint intranet, or getting an LMS system, or putting together a shared knowledge base, or working with third-party vendors for ticketing, you're going to find that CloudRadial is potentially a great fit for one or more of those capabilities. Client collaboration with the portal makes it their portal. And one of the things that's very interesting, and you see this, we do this with CloudRadial. We let you make that portal your portal through your own white label branding and themes and so forth, because we want this to be your portal. Because again, when you feel ownership in the portal, you become a longer-term client of CloudRadial. Same way too, if your clients feel ownership in the portal that you deliver, in other words, they put their own KB articles in there, maybe they've done their own courses, they start to use the portal for their own needs internally. Now what you've done is you turned our portal into your portal into their portal. And that's the home run that you're looking for with the clients, is to take your client experience and make this an integrated experience. It's one thing to be the guy that shows up to fix the computer. It's another thing to be the guy that's down the hall, who's a part of the team and he's a part of the staff. And so what we're trying to do with CloudRadial is not mimic the repairman philosophy that a lot of ticketing portals do. We're really trying to mimic that member of the team approach, where again, the MSP is an integral part of their staff, who just happens to reside in a different office, but yet works collaboratively with everybody there in the company. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ricky to do a deep dive on the client intranet and training capabilities of CloudRadial.
Great. Let's go ahead and share my screen and then we'll get to it.
Oh, that's good.
All right. So yeah, the intranet is, I think it stems from a really good place because like Jeff was saying, whenever the product CloudRadial started, right, there was a fair bit of thought of like, how can this thing help MSPs? Really, how can it help their clients? Because the client experience is always tricky in the MSP space. And initially, the gut feeling was like, man, they're going to really like the ticketing approach. Man, they're really going to like this, that, the other. They're going to like to see the reports. And while that is true to a degree, the fact of the matter is that nobody wants to get into a ticketing portal. So like nobody wants to put more effort to do something that is essentially a single shot thing, right? If it takes a bunch of effort to sign in and authenticate and do whatever, and then they go there and it's a single ticket, for example, it usually ends up getting pretty bad adoption. So our logic was like, okay, obviously, yes, now we're focused on single pane of glass, but the approach was asking the clients, first and foremost, what do you want to see? What will get you using this portal? What will get you interested in? And that's kind of how the intranet part started. And keep in mind, as I run through the features that CloudRadial has in it, it's really something very interesting that it really only takes one of these features for most clients to get hooked into it. And you'll see what I mean in a moment. So in the demo account that I'm sharing right now, we're looking at something that is undeniably a ticket view, right? Basically, they have a quick way to go and put in a problem ticket. They can go in and order stuff. They can go in and see their tickets, and then get a bunch of KB articles. So it's very support focused, which is totally cool. And that may be something that's necessary for this client. Now, in my other tenant tab up here, maybe I want an application homepage, something more like this, like bookmarks. And where this comes in handy is maybe that client, thanks to Corona, is now suffering from the challenges of working from home. They're now trying to get a team acclimated that never really had this problem before. And everybody's working from disparate devices. There's not really like browser standards. Like, how do you get them all in there? Well, all of a sudden, hey, guess what? You've given them a way to link off to their line of business applications. Maybe all of a sudden, you really want to have, like Jeff was saying, a SharePoint site that they want to put all their KB articles. Well, maybe that would be more conducive to a knowledge-based portal. So what we're looking at as I'm flipping through the options here is all three of these, including the one that I haven't covered, which is the university, so courses, actual training courses. All four of these can be different variations of home pages you can have, and you can select that on a client-by-client basis. And that's starting with kind of a different mindset than a lot of portals, because we're starting to think like, okay, it is obviously about you as the MSP to offer this, to scale and standardize your client experience, but it's very much the initial adoption is begging the client like, hey, we will get this right in whatever way you want to that makes it helpful for you. So maybe it's training, maybe it's KB, maybe it's ticketing, right? One of these things will hook them. Now, as we dive deeper into what we offer, right? So you can have various home pages and you can also change what options you have available to them. A lot of the stuff that you start seeing when you start exploring the menus, really in the first four tabs, the home, company, support, and university, is built to offer as much functionality and usage in that intranet capability as possible, right? So applications, again, these are the bookmarks. A shared calendar is also super helpful. This shared calendar allows you to take calendars from the organization, from Office 365, and share them. It's not the users seeing their own calendars online. It's the fact that you can put like the CEO's calendar, or maybe the conference room calendar, or like the PTO calendar. So everybody has a singular place in the portal for additional usage. Something like the directory, right? Being able to click on an individual user and be like, oh, there's Jeff's information. Let's get him on the Teams chat. Send him an email. Going down to the knowledge base, right? Being able to, like Jeff was saying, provide documentation and things as the MSP to the client is huge, right? People always talk about, your IT glue, and obviously documentation is huge for internal for IT people, right? So that's the way that you scale and run your business. And so too, there are things that you want to share with your clients. So writing your documentation directly within CloudRadial can be very easy and very powerful, right? So anything super simple, you can see that this one is an article with very little text. How to submit an article. Here's the directions, right? We have logging capabilities to let us know if the article was helpful or not, so we can kind of track those metrics. So you can simply write these articles to make a really powerful KB, not too complex fields, right? Category subjects, tag them alike. You can even add attachments to them and have them that way. Or if you have additional alternative documentation sources and you're really trying to build this to be powerful, The KB also supports pulling in various sources and translating them into PDF. So very common with, again, like an IT glue integration that we have is that you would take any article that you want to put in the portal, pop in the link, and we'll convert it, and that way that'll be in the portal, so you don't even have to put effort into recreating it. So this kind of stuff can help turn this into a viable and very useful thing for both you and them alike. Like I was saying, you doing that to them is a no-brainer, but all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a minute, couldn't they do that? Couldn't they run their own portal? And that's ultimately where you want to go with CloudRadial. We mentioned this in a previous webinar, which is the fact that a lot of times whenever you introduce any new piece of software, CloudRadial or anything else, the challenge that a lot of people have is they have to understand not only how to best use it, but how is that going to impact their workload? Is that going to take additional resources to manage? Is that going to become something that becomes a pain to keep up with? How does that all work? Well, the good news is that your goal really should be to set up the initial run of this. If you can get your clients to use it, just like we get our clients to use this, that becomes something that now they manage and they run. And it not only increases the stickiness of the portal, but also gets that management work off you. So a lot of the stuff under here, again, applications is the same thing. If I want to go add a link to something that I know that they use, that's certainly cool, right? We can add the icons and all that kind of stuff, but God, if we could give that to them, then they can totally do that. And then all of a sudden they get a lot of usage out of it. So we're going to minimize the company one. I'll skip support. I'll come back to it because Jeff made a good point of how that works and how that can work for them. This is the traditional ticketing aspect. We're going to jump down to the LMS in the university. So CloudRadial has a built-in LMS directly within it, right? And within here, it's something that I think isn't as full powered as a standalone LMS in that we're not doing like SCORM courses and we're not talking to a bunch of stuff via API, but for the most part, what people are looking for is achievable and trackable from here. A lot of times when we talk to our partners, they're looking for something that they can maybe plug a couple resources in. They want to link off to a video or embed it, and they want to be able to track completion of those courses, mark them as required, see who's done them, see who hasn't, get that reporting. That's all available and possible in CloudRadial. So whenever you first start out with a tenant, you have these 3 courses, right? And soon to be more actually, but that's another story. Whenever you first look at it, you're able to click on any one of them. And basically what happens is pretty much what you would hope. You have a splash screen, you have a little description. Every lesson of that course is broken down nice and logistically. So you go, hey, lesson 1, what is Teams? In comes the video pulled from YouTube. I can click next, I can keep going through it. And then some of these might even have like chat questions in them, which means that, or not chat questions, sorry, quiz questions. So maybe something like the cybersecurity one, as I go through it, it's not just me watching videos and going next, next, next. It's going like, okay, now enter the details and making sure that if I mess it up, they have to read it and understand it. They go, oh, sorry. You can set all different things such as what's the passing criteria and how long does the certificate last after they complete the course? How long is that good for? And that's really helpful for things like medical compliance things that require taking a course over and over again to brush up on stuff. So all of that is built within CloudRadial. Again, not terribly complex. So you build your initial overview screen. You can set, again, that passing score, the certification. As you embed things, you build out your lessons. So in this case, this would be where I put my video of any type. I can write that content, I can embed it, I can do whatever I feel, and then I can add exam questions to it. So I go, hey, exam question 1, this is that question. Here's the answer, this is the right answer. And then basically you repeat this to any degree that you like. So doing this within CloudRadial, obviously for you is a knockout because you're able to inject any kind of training you want, or giving this to the clients, and this is the much more powerful way of doing it, turns this into something that potentially they can use to onboard their own people, because it's one thing for you to train somebody and maybe reduce ticket volume on Teams because now they're trained up and you can see who's done it and who hasn't, but it's a completely other thing to have them running their own users through this and depending on this for their business. I mean, you can't get much more sticky than that, and not in a malicious way, but that protects a lot of MSPs from being put on different price points, right? So I hear the story all the time that somebody else comes along and offers $5 less a seat for managed, right? And on paper, if you can't tell the difference between the two, that sounds like a good deal. Why wouldn't I pay $5 less a person? That can add up to a lot of money. All of a sudden, if they're able to see all the things you do for them and they depend on you, right? It's not something that's so easy. It's like, well, we have all this training, we have all this thing. So even if somebody offers me $5 less per seat, think about all the things I lose, all the processes that we've built, and you can always get them out of here. Don't get me wrong, but for the most part, having that ingrained and having that be a powerful part of their workflow process just makes that client so much more attached to you. Now, we provide some of these courses. Obviously, the ones you're looking at right now are built from CloudRadial, and they come with the platform. We built them for you. But another thing that people ask us all the time is on course creation and course distribution, do we have any additional courses? And is there anything else we can do to like plug in, maybe some other providers? We actually do partner with Bigger Brains, and they're great. They provide a lot of our additional courses, and this is the only thing on CloudRadial right now that is for an additional fee, and I actually have these in the demo client. So other than these three, you can access the Bigger Brains courses, and these will populate within CloudRadial just like ours. So they look with their distinctive style. They do a lot of cell shading, which is really cool. And whenever you go into them, you can see that I would basically go, hey, using Windows 10. Again, it looks just like ours. As soon as you unlock that Bigger Brains thing, we're running everything natively out of CloudRadial. So the experience isn't broken. They're not getting taken away to the Bigger Brains site. They click on the individual course, the Bigger Brains module loads in, and they're able to take that directly from here. So it works exactly the same. It tracks just the same. And these are very high quality, like professionally produced courses on how to do these things, and they update the library, and so do we. So that means that if you're in a pinch, you're looking to make sure that you want to do your own training, you want to get their training in here to kind of to empower them. There's kind of a lot of different ways to do this. So training is a very, very powerful bit of CloudRadial, and that kind of exists in our university courses. Equally part of the intranet, obviously less powerful because you can take it so many ways, but really cool is also the quick starts, and this is very common as well. Quick starts can be thought of almost as an alternative KB library. In the knowledge base we looked at before, in the KB, right, I showed you that you can pull documents from places and convert them to PDF, or you can write them in there, and then that's cool. But a lot of times what people have is they'll have the need to distribute files, like PDFs very commonly, right? So if we have those things and you want to distribute them and you want to make that a part of training, you want to use this as a platform, we can do that, right? So what you're seeing here is kind of a nice visual way to look at it. You're like, oh, Teams for Windows, okay, click. And it's going to call that, store it on here. It's going to pull that through and go, okay, here's the Teams for Windows guide. And I can hopefully reduce some tickets. I can load up the documentation in here on perhaps training, perhaps processes. Some of our more involved clients actually will go through and put like employee handbooks and stuff in this area. So that way they're mixing and matching both documentation and also internal processes. So that way, kind of like a SharePoint site, it's all in one area. It adds a whole lot more value for the client in one place in the portal. So a lot of these processes built up in the intranet, right? So whatever homepage is most relevant for them, whatever university courses they need to be taking, whatever they need to see, the quick starts. And I guess I'll finish up the discussion on this just because I almost forgot. Whenever someone takes a course, you are able to, under compliance and training, which is a little bit further down in the feature set here, you're able to see all of the courses available, all of the enrollees and completions, and I'm able to get the details on who it is that enrolled and completed. I'm able to pull reports of this, which is especially handy, again, on your side of things to figure out if, Jeff keeps putting in tickets on how Teams sucks and doesn't work and he's never taken the course, I can start to correlate that. So there's a whole lot of power there, but also for the internal, the client, right? So the client is also able to see this kind of completion statistics and data, which means that if they do end up putting something like an onboarding course and they want to make sure that they can see it on the home page, the user is going to have the fact that they have courses waiting for them listed here. I know I have a whole bunch of stuff under my sidebar, but they're going to go take whatever is required for them, and they're going to be able to track the completion so they can follow up and get visibility on that. But anyways, so the only part I haven't really mentioned about the intranet is the ticketing. And ticketing isn't typically thought of as an intranet feature because usually it kind of falls between the MSP and the client, but really it's kind of that one-way relationship. Like they put in tickets from here, it goes off to the MSP. Now, what's interesting, and Jeff mentioned this, is that at any point you can toggle the ability for the client to create their own content, right? And maybe you want to have this as a view-only portal that you manage for them. That's totally okay. You want to add the articles for them, you want to add the courses, you want to manage their ticket catalog. So they go in here, they click on the ticket, they submit that off, and that is good to go. A very interesting use case that we've seen pop up time and time again is as the client gets more comfortable with the ownership of their own tenant, of their own company in CloudRadial, they start to wonder, it's like, well, you submit tickets, and they may not know what a PSA is, where boards and queues are, but they do know that they can build their own custom forms because this thing is a form builder, right? You can build these tickets in whatever way you want to. So giving them the option to actually not maybe necessarily get these partner settings, they actually won't be shown these for queues and boards and stuff, but having them be able to create their own tickets and designate where those go can start to turn the ticketing capability into something they use too. The way I've seen this used, which I think is really clever, is sometimes MSPs will allow clients to create their own tickets and then send emails to third-party vendors. So instead of having them request ink to them, that's not even where they buy it from, they'll go put in the ink vendor support email and they'll have that log over there. So that way you give the power of the client to not only submit tickets through you, which of course is the support aspect, but use this to any degree to basically create their own ticketing system. The magic of CloudRadial, I think, especially in the intranet, is that, like I said, there's not one right answer. You might have a company that really just sinks their teeth in the knowledge base, and that's good enough, or one that is in the university, but a mix and match of any of these is going to be super, super powerful for them. I think something worth mentioning, I did talk about this a little bit ago as well on another webinar, but when you look at CloudRadial initially, your first impressions may be that this is a lot of stuff, and it certainly is, because again, CloudRadial is so rich with features, both from a client management side and also from a client portal side, right? So for account managers and clients themselves, that it can feel overwhelming to first look at this, because you go home, company, support, university, and we just really scratch the surface with this first kind of quadrant of intranet. So as we go further down to infrastructure and usage and security all the way down to account, that stuff is really starting to build the reporting aspect, the compliance stuff, the QBR stuff, which, don't get me wrong, is massively helpful for the MSP and for the client, but it is not helpful to your day-to-day person. You're trying to offer something that gives them a lot of room to grow into, but not overwhelm them to the point where they can't use it. So something worth noting is whenever you look at the client experience, right? I'm going to my partner dropdown, which is my control panel and how I manage CloudRadial as an MSP. And I go to my client area. As I click on any one of my clients, in this case, Digital Efforts is the client we're looking at right now, I can impersonate a generic admin within this company. And when I do that, it's going to show me what a generic admin would see. And surprise, a generic admin sees every option, minus the partner dropdown, because that's only for MSPs. Okay, fine. When I do it again, I can also impersonate a generic user. And when I impersonate a generic user, you're going to realize that we already thought of this because we agree. I mean, ultimately, we don't want the users getting overwhelmed. So the generic users, by default, hard-coded, are going to see the first 4 tabs, which means that all the complexity that they might get overwhelmed with all those other tabs are gone. So they really can focus on just the things that help them do their job, which is what your typical end users needs to see. And again, if you can get them to use this as their start to their day, I mean, again, they don't have to use everything 100%. Just this can get some usage. All of a sudden it becomes a really, really handy tool. I mean, being able to click at the top right, get your applications, get your favorites, and tag them as such is something that is extremely helpful and extremely cool for users. So there's lots of ins here for the client, right? And for you as well. And turning this, I guess the summary of all the intranet is, this is the biggest opportunity that you have to turn this into an IP for your client experience. And I wrote a white paper about this a couple weeks ago, that I think one of the biggest opportunities that MSPs miss is tying this all together. And I know that during this webinar, I show you all these features and I go, hey, they all work together, but unless you make them part of your story, they're just disparate features that you put out there. But if you start to showcase how that ties in, how you offer that, how you communicate through them and how they can too, then all of a sudden that becomes your client experience. That becomes your signature offering. That becomes something that you can control and have mastery of. And the more intellectual property you build into CloudRadial, so your ticket catalogs, the specific way you put in your guides, the specific courses you do, the more powerful you become as an MSP from a client experience side. Because now, when it comes to apples and oranges, you can start to ask tougher and tougher questions, right? When it's your MSP versus the other guy, it's no longer a question of stack costs or this or that. You can start to say, well, what does it look like to work with you? Well, what do they all like? It's like, how does it work in the first place? And the more helpful stuff that you've got from your own knowledge base, your own courses and trainings, you can start to trigger things that are very, very interesting. So for example, in CloudRadial, we have a fast path option, which is this search option at the top. And the more intellectual property you have, all of a sudden, the more resources you give them. So instead of just saying, hey, what's the deal with OneDrive? Let me go look for OneDrive. Maybe they type in OneDrive up here because they want to search some issues. And all of a sudden, your intellectual property on maybe service requests for setting up OneDrive, or maybe you already wrote an article on how to set up OneDrive, and that's available too. And you have a quick start for it, and you have some courses on how to do that. You can start to offer these things as part of your experience. So the richer and richer it gets, the richer your client experience gets as a whole. And that's kind of invaluable because you can't compare that to anyone else. That is your thing. and it makes you the truly unique MSP I think most people want to come off as. So, sorry, Jeff. I think you're muted, unless you're doing a great impression.
There we go. So the key things is that all of this is scalable in the sense that you can turn these features on or off. So you can enable collaboration or you can turn it off, right? So if you want to dial CloudRadial down to be a very bare bones ticketing portal, works great. If you want to dial it up to be a full boat client intranet collaborative experience, you can do all that, and you can do it by client. So we have a lot of clients that basically enable these other features for an extra cost or for a different class of service. So, maybe the bronze package doesn't get all of this capability, but the silver or the gold package does, right? So again, you can dial this in and have this make sense in your own platform and use this as a plus sell experience. We've also got clients that use this to plus sell their Office 365 licenses. So again, the basic Office license may be without CloudRadial, and then the premium license includes all of this extra capability as well because it's so tightly integrated. Again, how you package this and how you determine your own retention strategies is entirely up to you. And we've got, I think, with the hundreds of clients that we have using this, there's probably hundreds of different ways that you can apply this model to your own business. One last thing before we go, the best case study, I mean, at least the case study that I'm most familiar with is our own. We're not an MSP, and we're not serviced by an MSP, but we have needs as a small business, or now larger business, but a small business, to deal with new employee issues, onboardings, all of those types of issues. We now direct employees back to the portal, right? We direct people back to the portal because that's where the links to all of the applications we use are located. It's where they find their training on Office 365. It's where they find links to all of their benefits and knowledge base articles. It's where our developers go to find all the latest information on how we integrate with Autotask or how they get to our code tracking systems. It's the links where our salespeople go to access all the tools that they use to track contacts and marketing issues. It's the tools we use internally to basically take somebody that doesn't know very much about our company and get them up to speed. And so we use it exactly as a client intranet. Again, we use it for that, and we don't use it for ticketing. But that's become invaluable in the desktop app. My start page on the web browser is CloudRadial simply because that's where I'm launching from. That's my favorites list. That's my applications. And when I bring those new people on board, that's where I direct them to because that's where they find the links to the tools that we have. So, again, it's a really powerful tool, intranet, much easier to use and set up than Office 365, much more scalable, much faster, but works well. When we add a new user, they're automatically synced over from 365 and added to the portal. What can be easier than that? So this is going to wrap up this webinar. This actually wraps up our Datto MSP Tech Day. Again, we're going to break these webinars up and put those out on YouTube. So if you want to watch these at your leisure, or you're just really sad and lonely and just like our company, then those will be available as well. Again, I appreciate your attendance today and appreciate you either as a client or appreciate you as a future client. So thanks for attending and stay safe and see you next time.